appreciate the importance of their brain?
No, I think they ignore it all the time. And I think that is part of my message to everybody, that the human brain, that is the one in your head right now, is the most complex structure known to humankind. Not Einstein's brain, not Marie Curie's brain, but the one in your head. And when you think about that, it gives you more of a self-appreciation of all of the computations that is taking for me to see you and appreciate your face and be able to remember your face next time I see you, when I go to my Diary of a CEO podcast and choose an episode. All of that is such a complex structure. You start to appreciate your own kind of brain functioning more. I think that's a very important thing to do.
Why don't we appreciate our brains? Because we appreciate a lot of other things.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time on our muscles.
Yeah, our abs.
Yeah.
I think that that's a great analogy, and part of my goal is to kind of shift the focus from focusing on certain body parts to focusing on what our brain is doing for us, what it can do for us, and what we can do to change our environments to get to that big, fat, fluffy brain, to get it healthy, to get it happy, to get it growing.
If I achieve a big, fat, fluffy brain, how would my life be different? I'm saying me, Steve Bartlett. I'm a podcaster, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in relationships, I've got friends, girlfriend, family.
Yeah.
How would I show up differently if I was able to make my brain big, fat, and fluffy?
Yeah. So let me start with the two areas that we know respond really, really well to things like meditation and exercise. Those two brain areas are the hippocampus, critical for long-term memory, your ability to form and retain new long-term memories and for facts and events. And the second brain area is your prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead, critical for your ability to shift and focus attention. It's important for your personality, for decision making.
Can you show me on there?
Absolutely. I brought a human brain. Let's bring that.
You have a model of a brain as well.
I have a model of the brain. Okay, let's start with the model of the brain. So here is a model of the human brain. So there's a front part and a back part. This front part is right behind our forehead. That's the prefrontal cortex, critical for the ability to shift and focus attention. Also, a part of the brain that is very responsive to what you bring into your life. Exercise actually really helps the prefrontal cortex. Meditation helps area 10 of the prefrontal cortex, which is right in the very front, right here. The second brain area that you will benefit from when you make your brain big and fat and fluffy is a structure called the hippocampus, which is buried deep in this lobe right here, which is the temporal lobe. The hippocampus means seahorse, and the hippocampus is critical for your ability to form and retain new long-term memories for facts and events. You have one on the right and you have one on the left. So for you, superstar podcaster, what do you need to do? You need to remember all the details of that guest that you're sitting in front of. You need to be able to focus. What did they say? What do I want to ask next? And how do I want to come back to those things? That is a combination of what your prefrontal cortex is doing for you and your hippocampus is doing for you. So I submit that when you do these things that we know from neuroscience are going to make your prefrontal cortex and your hippocampus big and fat and fluffy, you will be better at doing your job as a podcaster. I am better as a dean and a professor of neuroscience, and teaching in class, for example, is where I'm using my prefrontal cortex and my hippocampus the most. Most of us would benefit from these things that make our brains big and fat and fluffy.
Was there a point in your life where you had a personal epiphany or revelation about the brain that made you so passionate about the subject?
Absolutely. So this story starts when I was in the middle of getting tenure at New York University. So it takes 6 years. You have 6 years to prove yourself as a scientist and do something groundbreaking. And if you don't, you're fired. So no big deal, no pressure there. And I decided to only just work. I didn't have a lot of social interactions. I was just working, and I just threw myself into work. And I was getting burnt out. And I decided to go on a river rafting trip to Peru. by myself because I had no friends. So I go on the river rafting trip, and it's great. It's beautiful. We're river rafting. We're camping on Aztec burial sites, and it is just spectacular. But I realized that I'm the weakest person on this trip. And when I got back after this wonderful, 2 weeks in Peru, I said, I never want to feel like the weakest person on a trip like that again. And it was so great to be moving and to be exercising. So I decided I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to continue this physical activity at the gym. And somehow it stuck. I had let myself go, no exercise at all. And when I started going to the gym regularly, I noticed that great mood that I found in Peru every day during the river rafting trip stayed with me. I think everybody in my lab loved it when I was going to the gym. And I started to notice, not only I got stronger, I was feeling better, that mood boost that I got from physical activity was so powerful. But then one day, you asked me about this revelation I had. It was one day I was sitting in my office writing a grant, which is usually something that I have to do very regularly, but usually something that I'm pulling my hair out. It's so hard. It's very competitive. I'm competing against Nobel laureates for the same pot of money. And I had this thought that went through my mind, which was, gosh, writing went well today. I've never had that thought before, ever I'd been there for 5 years at NYU writing grants. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'm just having a good day. I'm feeling good. But I realized that the writing seemed to have been getting a little bit better over time. I had noticed it a little bit if I think about it. And the only thing I had changed in my life was regular physical activity inspired by that trip to Peru. And so I'm a neuroscientist. I went to the literature and I asked, well, what do we know right now about what exactly exercise is doing? And it showed at that moment in time, about 10, 15 years ago, that exercise can improve your mood. Exercise actually makes your memory work better. And exercise improves the function of your prefrontal cortex. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. But the last part of the story was that when all of this was going on, this was after this day of realizing, gosh, something's, my writing is better. And maybe it's exercise. I got a call from my mom who said that my father wasn't feeling well and that he had gotten lost driving back from the coffee shop that he drove to every day, every afternoon for the last 20 years. And the hippocampus, that structure critical for memory, is particularly important for spatial memory. And as an expert in the hippocampus, as I am, I knew that was a telltale sign of dementia and maybe Alzheimer's dementia. But as I talked to my father, and of course we went and got him a neurology appointment, I saw that everything that seemed to be improving in me, that is memory, focus, completely and very, very suddenly diminished in him. His memory was terrible. He couldn't focus. He was also very depressed because he could notice how poor his memory was. And I think those things together, what I was noticing in myself about the physical effects of physical activity on my own brain function, and seeing my father go through what was a really precipitous loss of his cognitive functions that turned out to be Alzheimer's dementia, made me think that the power of physical activity needed to be explored more deeply. And by me, I was waking up in the morning thinking about what can I do to better understand how physical activity could be used, not just for me, for my students. Can they study better? Can they learn better? Can it help, maybe not my father? I wasn't sure whether exercise could help my father at that point, but as people age, that was the revelation that I had that made me actually switch my research focus from memory function to understanding the effects of physical activity on the brain.
All of this is rooted in a fact that was once not considered a fact, which is the idea that our brains can change shape.
Yes, yeah.
Which is this idea of brain plasticity. I only really learned about this a couple of years ago because I think I, like many people, didn't realize that like muscles, my brain changes shape based on what I do.
Yes.
And also what I consume.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
What is the evidence or the studies that we have that proves our brains do change shape?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And it takes me back to the first day of my freshman year at UC Berkeley. When I walked into the classroom, I didn't know it at the time,